All right, we're continuing our study in the book of Revelation. We're currently in chapter 17. We've covered the first several verses, maybe verse 1 through 4. We will continue on with reading up to where we left off. And there came one of the seven angels which had the seven vials and talked with me, saying, Come unto me, Come hither. I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore that sitteth upon many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of her fornication. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness, and I saw a woman sit upon a scarlet-colored beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet color, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. So this is basically where we left off last time. John he saw something both with the natural eye, and he saw something, he was taken into the spirit, and what he was shown was this, as we know, this woman, initially called a great whore. She had a golden cup in her hand, filled with all types of abominations and filthiness. She was decked in clothing. So this is all just initially, everything is just basically starts out with just as a natural, and then he moves her into the spiritual realm to look at this woman a little closer. Now, when we get to verse 5, now he has never called her by name yet. He's always been described her as a woman adorned a certain way, and called a great whore. But now with the spiritual eye, he's seeing further about a further description or identity of who this woman is. Now, I've gone ahead and called her Babylon the Great, right? But it had not been yet identified yet. But as he continues and is led into the spirit, more information is revealed. And this woman that he's seen that sits upon the scarlet beast, he says, upon her forehead was a name written mystery. So we looked at this a little bit yesterday. What the forehead is, that's associated with the identity of an individual. So whatever's written on their forehead, that's their identity often, right? It's association with what the mind is captivated by, or what the mind is given over to, or what the mind has been transformed or changed into, right? Or a name on someone's forehead also can mean ownership. Like someone has ownership over that, or they belong to someone or something. So typically that's what we see on the forehead. And that's what we've read throughout the book of Revelation, right? Things attached to the forehead as it relates to the Antichrist, putting the symbol or a seal on their forehead and in their hand. But in the Old Testament, symbols and names are written on the forehead of those that belong to God, things like that, right? So the forehead is symbolic of where the mind is given to, or what the mind is captivated by, is what we're talking about here as it relates to this great woman who is a whore, right? Previously, as we said, this woman was defined as just as a woman. She was adorned. She was an adorned great whore with a golden cup. It yet had not been revealed that this was actually mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abomination of the earth. So there is this, as we often see in the book of Revelation, there's this progressive revealing or revelation of identities, a little bit at a time. But it's as we go deeper into the spiritual realm, then we're able to see more. It starts out with the natural eye, a perception with the natural eye. Then we goes into the spiritual eye, or spiritual revelation, right? What the title written on this woman's forehead, it lets us know what their focus is mentally. Their focus is on fornication, as we're going to see, both spiritual fornication and spiritual fornication, which we call spiritual idolatry. So that's what's on her forehead means. That's what she's focused on, right? That's what the mind is given to, just focus on fornication. And we're going to see that because that's why she's called the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. That's where her focus is on. Just like our mind is transformed by Christ, right? And Christ says that he's going to put his name upon our foreheads and the name of our Father upon his foreheads. We are both, that's our identity. We are transformed by that. And that's what our focus is. Our focus is on the Father. Our focus is on Christ. Our focus is on God. Well, this woman here, that's her focus. Her focus is on fornication, both physically and spiritual idolatry. And so I think last time we discussed looking at what the forehead is associated with. When we looked at Revelation chapter 14, verse 1, we see an example here that relates to Christ, and God the Father and those that follow him, the saints. It says, Jesus speaking in Revelation chapter 14, verse 1, it says, speaking of John, it says, and I looked, and lo, a lamb stood on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000 having his Father's name written in their foreheads. So this is on their forehead is the name of God written in their forehead. That shows both ownership. It shows who they associate their identity with. Their identity is with God. They have a special relationship with. That's actually representing 144,000. Those are virgin male Jews, right? And God is their husband, and they represent the bride. So there is this relationship that is going on here that they are both captivated by. That's their identity, and that is their ownership. And in the same manner, this woman here having this name in her forehead, it shows what her mind or thought has been transformed to, what her purpose, what her goal is, and things like that. Revelation chapter 3, verse 12 gives another example of association of a forehead, writing things on the forehead. Jesus is speaking in Revelation chapter 3, verse 12 to one of the 7 churches. He says, him that overcometh will I make a pillar in the temple of my God, and I will write upon him the name of my God and the name of the city of my God, and I will write upon him my new name. So we know Christ is going to have a new name as well. And all of that is put on the saints, or those that follow after Jesus. This is specific to New Testament believers, right? He's going to put all of this on the New Testament believers. And so that has to do with both a place, that has to do with their identity and their association and what they've been given over to, right? So all of that is bundled up into a name written upon them, right? And typically it's talking about upon their forehead. So we see here she has a name written upon her head as well. Now it says upon her forehead was a name written. Now notice here that it says name, not names. Because when you look at this title that is written, it looks like it is a bunch of names. It's one name, mystery, comma, another name, Babylon the Great, comma, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. Period. So it looks like there's actually 3 names, 3 titles, 3 identifications, identifiers of this woman here that we're talking about. But it doesn't say names, it actually says name, right? That means that she encompasses all of these are part of her identity. They're not separate from one another. They're not distinct from one another. They all come together, right? And so they're just saying it's all one thing, bound and bundled together. You cannot separate these things out, right? It's all one and the same. You can't take any one of these things out to describe her. It's all of it. It's all together. That is her purpose, her goal, her function, as well. So when it says name here, when you look up name in Webster's or whatever, it will tell you a name describes a person, a place, a class, a group. It has a long list of things of what names represent. And it's unique because when you look at this woman here, she has all of them all together. So when we look at mystery, that's talking about a spiritual name given to her, right? We talked about what this word mystery means before. We said mystery, when you look it up in the biblical concordance, mystery here says it's a hidden truth that's revealed to those that have been granted spiritual insight. We'll talk about that a little more. But part of what she is that you don't know fully what you're involving yourself in until you get in it. Then you realize, I've joined in with her and I formed a union with Satan. You don't know that when you look at it on the outside. But the mystery that we're talking about is the mystery that only comes with when you join in a fellowship with a spiritual relationship. And because of that spiritual relationship, now you're granted insight into what's behind the scenes. And so she's a mystery. From the outside, you look at her and you're just like, oh, she's just this beautiful woman. She's adorned with jewels and pearls and gold, and she has this golden cup in her hand. Oh, she's so beautiful. But the mystery is once you have fellowship with her, you find out it's a spiritual fellowship and you're actually forming bonds or a special relationship with Satan. And one time I was watching a video with Snoop Dogg or whatever, and he is making this pact with the devil. Well, he wants to, a lot of music videos have the same kind of symbolism as well. They start out wanting to be famous, rappers, singers, whatever. who was that other woman? Katy Perry. She did a video like that as well. She saw something she wanted. She wanted to be rich. She wanted to be famous. She wanted to be an idol or whatever. And she made this pact to be famous or whatever. And then she saw behind the scenes that she was actually making a pact with the devil. And it was all in the video. Snoop Dogg did one similarly as well. You know, that's the mystery part. You know, you look from the outside and you're like, oh, I want to be rich. I want to be famous. And that's where a lot of youth are like, oh, I want to be famous. I want to be, you know, I want to be a star, you know. But they don't know when they are approaching this woman, right? There's a mystery to it. There's something spiritual about it. But once you join it, you realize that, oh man, I just made a pact with Satan, or this is fully demonic and stuff like that, right? So that's the mystery part. It's a hidden truth that's only revealed to those that have been granted spiritual insight because they've joined in with a spiritual entity or religious entity that they didn't really know was all that religious. They didn't know it was religious at all, but once they joined in, a mystery was revealed, right? That this is spiritual. We talked about that in the Bible when it talks about mystery, it's talking about something that is not known to you. It's been shut apart away from you. But to those who have a special relationship like Christians, relationship with Christ, those mysteries are made available to us because of our special relationship with Christ. We'll look at that a little more. But the other thing about the name that we see associated with this woman is that it is also a place. So the mystery refers to the spiritual aspect. The name is also associated with a place, a physical, but it's still spiritual, and it's called Babylon the Great. So mystery is spiritual as part of the name. Babylon refers to the place, right? And it's Babylon the Great. So we know Babylon originally was a location in Iraq. Of course, that's where the Tower of Babel was. We know that. But when it talks about this woman here, she is able to seduce subjugates, right, to live in a spiritual place called Babylon. So she pulls people into a place where they live like Babylonians, where they have no fear of the Lord. We talked about one of the characteristics of Babylonians, that they cause others not to fear the Lord. They are thieves, they are murderers, they're idolaters. So she pulls them into a spiritual place, and they're living in a spiritual place called Babylon. And they are Babylonians. So when you look at people in the world, you know, you're like, yeah, they're Babylonians. If they're of this world, living the worldly life, they're Babylonians. They may not even know they're Babylonians, but they are Babylonians, right? And she seduces them to become a part of Babylonian. It's called Babylon the Great, we said, because it covers the whole earth. Remember, we said that she sits upon many waters, right? So she's all over the whole earth, and so that's part of what it means of Babylon the Great. The other reason why it's Babylon the Great is because she has pulled in so many people to participate, right? It's going to go on to talk about there's merchants and there's musicians and there's singers and there's tradesmen and there's those that travel on the waters back and forth. There's so many people that she's pulled in to participate. That's why it's also called Babylon the Great. Every day she's pulling in more and more people to participate and her harlotry and abominations of the earth. Right. Now, one thing we do see about this name that she has, it is also a person, right? And the person is mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. So this title is both spiritual, it's both a place, and it's both a person, right? But it has a class and a purpose. So a name can identify what your class of purpose is, right? So names, you can say, I'm an electrician. That is a name. But it tells you about its class or purpose, things like that. So here we see that a mother of harlots and abominations of the earth both identifies a person, and identifies class and purpose, right? So when we talk about the mother of harlots and abominations, we mean that she gives birth to and produces harlots, right? That's what her person and purpose and class is. That she does is she gives birth to and produces harlots. She gives birth to and produces abominations of the earth. Right? That's all she does. That's her purpose, is just to produce abominations and to produce harlots. And so let's take a little closer look at this, what we talked about, this title that is written on her forehead, right? Mystery. We talked about when you look up this word mystery, it means to shut the mouth. But when you also look it up in the concordance, it also says in Strong Concordance, a secret through the idea of silence imposed by initiation into religious rites. We talked about that before. And what that means is that If you're on the outside, you don't have any idea of what's going on the inside. That's what we said. For many people, they're like, oh, I want to be a movie star. I want to be a rapper, or I want to be something famous, whatever. On the outside, you have no idea that in order to become part of this famous institution, you have it's a spiritual thing that's going on as well. It's not just a natural thing. If you ever read a lot of people, a lot of let's say sports actors. I'm going off topic here. One of the famous one is Serena Williams. Serena Williams says she has multiple personalities, and these personalities help her perform at the highest level of achievement. That's how she claims she's able to win all these things. When you look at Tom Brady, he is, for those who don't follow football, he's a big, he's called the GOAT, the greatest of all times football quarterback. He's won the most championships in football, Super Bowls that anyone's ever won, right? We know that he and his wife are associated with witchcraft, right? If you follow, I'm just doing sports today. If you read any books on, for example, Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant wrote a book called The Muse, right? The Muse is a spirit or a demon that helps you perform your craft. And if you would listen to his coach, what is the name of that coach? He also was the coach of Michael Jordan as well. Do you remember that coach? I can't remember that coach, right? But he teaches that you need to have a muse. A muse is a demon that helps you, or a spirit that helps you perform they call it craft, but perform your trade or whatever you're doing, whether it be basketball, whatever. But if you were to look into the backgrounds, a lot of those that are athletes or entertainers or movie stars or whatever, they have demons or spirits that work with them that help them accomplish. Now, those on the outside looking on the red carpet or looking at athletes are like, well, I want to be like them. How do we get to be like that? You'll never know that they've made pacts with devils, or they're working with spirits and stuff like that helps them accomplish. But yeah, Kobe Bryant wrote a book. It's called The Muse. And he has a spirit that helps him be aggressive and to overcome his opponents, stuff like that, and to have greater strength and ability and stuff like that. And you would not know that is all a part of what Babylon is. It's a mystery. You only know once you get in what's behind the scenes that allow these people to be so great, right? Jesus talked about this in Mark chapter 4, verse 11. When we think of mysteries that are in the Bible, we think of it in the American English that it's something that we don't know. A mystery is something that we don't know. But in the Bible and here in the book of Revelation, a mystery is something that you know truth about the spiritual things of what's going on because you have joined into the spiritual fellowship. And in Mark chapter 4, verse 11, Jesus speaking to his disciples, he says, and he said unto them, unto you it is given to know the mystery of the kingdom of God, but unto them that are without, all these things are done in parables. And so Jesus was telling them all these mysteries in private to Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, or Peter, James, and John, stuff like that. He was only telling his disciples in private mysteries because they were part of the fellowship with Christ. So when we come into the body of Christ, there are things that are given to us that are mysteries, but mysteries meaning that they're revealed to us because of our relationship with Christ and with God the Father. Even in the occult, in the world of Babylon, right, in order to become great in this world, this Babylonian world, there are mysteries there that you don't know until you join, like how you become great, how to become wealthy and billionaires and stuff like that. How do you become like the guy who came up with Apple, that's Steve Jobs, right? He was into a cult. His first computer was labeled 666, and no, it cost 666, right? That's on Wikipedia. I've said before, and he has the image with the apple bitten out of it. So he made a pact with Satan and the devil and stuff like that to gain all of this, information and stuff like that. A lot of the stuff that people that get famous in this world. But you look behind the scenes, people look at it, oh, wow, they're just great. Wow, they're just so smart. I wish I could come up with something and be a genius. But they don't know there's a mystery behind that. But you don't know that until you get to that level and you're just like, oh, I thought these guys came up with these ideas all by themselves. No, they had demons working with them, and they revealed to them hidden things and that are in the demons have given to them spiritually that they now can then become successful. Well, in the body of Christ, spiritual things are revealed to us that not revealed to other people, because our relationship with Christ, things are revealed to us. And that's what Jesus is saying here in Mark chapter 4, verse 11. Those that are disciples of Christ, he reveals them the truths of the kingdom of God that other people don't know from the outside. And another example we spoke of was 1 Corinthians chapter 15, verse 51 through 52. Paul says, behold, I show you a mystery. And the mystery here he's saying is that the mystery is a truth that is revealed because of our relationship with Christ. This information is being shared with us that we would not have known if we had not have a relationship and fellowship with Christ. And so he's saying, behold, I show you a mystery. We shall not all sleep, but we shall be changed in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trump. For the trumpet shall sound, and the dead shall be raised incorruptible, and we shall be changed. So this is something that is made a mystery that is revealed to the body of Christ because of we have come to Christ, and we've had fellowship with him, and Paul has a relationship with him. And because of that, these things are revealed to him that would not have been revealed to him if he were not in Christ Jesus. And so the more that we get into our fellowship with Christ, the more things are revealed to us because of our relationship with Christ. And we call that mysteries, revelations that are given to us because of our fellowship with Christ. So the more I get into the word, the more you get into the word, things are revealed to us, mysteries, truths about the kingdom of God revealed to us because of our relationship. Well, the same thing with mystery, Babylon the Great. The mystery here, there are things that are revealed once you get into the participation of these idolatries and fornications or things of the riches of this world that you're like, oh man, I'm in league with Satan, things like that. Occult things become aware to you of how these things are being done, what's behind it. You begin to see that this woman Babylon is actually seated upon a scarlet beast, which represents Satan. Before, you may not have never saw that. You're just like, I want to be rich. I want to be famous. I want to drive Benz and Bentleys and, all that stuff. Not that you can't have all those things and do it in Christ. But a lot of people are seeking after those things, but they don't know that a mystery behind all of that is that Satan is the one that is supporting and pushing all of that, trying to draw you into idolatry, fornication, and abominations. Right? All right. So when we look at Babylon the Great, this is another title, part of her title that is on her forehead. It's called Babylon the Great. Of course, we said before, Babylon started just as a single city in Iraq, right? Just as a tower. And their whole purpose and goal was just to build a city, right? Or to build a tower. And it was supposed to, for the purpose of overthrowing God and rebellion against God. Right. But now it has become worldwide. So that's why we said it's called Babylon the Great. And it encompasses so many different people, so many different kinds of trades. That's why we call it a city as well. Right. Babylon the Great, we know it worships everything and anything but God. Right. That's what Babylon the Great also means. It worships everything and anything but God. That's what it's so great about. It worships everything and anything but God. Right. And we know the word Babel, which is the root word for Babylon, just means great confusion. That's because anytime you get yourself involved in idolatry, and it leads to a lot of confusion because the root of it is Satan's behind all of it. His purpose is to go against all the laws of God. Anytime you cast away all of the laws of God, it leads to confusion, both in heaven and in earth and in politics and the homes and everything just leads to confusion, right? It's called Babylon the Great because it has wide appeal and affluence, right? It influences everything. Like you cannot withstand Babylon. I look at certain cultures that like to maintain a certain communities or cultures. They can't fight against. They try to hold on to their own values or whatever, but with time, the appeal of Babylon begins to pull it down, tear it down, and it creeps in and just destroys it. It has wide appeal and affluence. It's everywhere. You cannot escape Babylon. It has grown throughout the world. Since the beginning of time, it's continued to grow and to become great. The goal was to start with just a single city, but now it's become worldwide, sitting upon many waters. Now, I'll tell you this because we're talking about, we know natural Babylon was destroyed. That kingdom, it came to an end. It was destroyed by the Medes and the Persians. But it's still talking as if Babylon is present and has increased. So what we're actually talking about is we're talking about actually a spiritual city, a spiritual kingdom that it still exists. But behind all of that, each kingdom that has come on the earth, behind each of those kingdoms is a demon. So when we're talking about spiritual Babylon, right, we're talking about a demon force, a demonic force, a demonic spirit that is working, creating a religious type of system. But the religious system is a religious system based on false worship of false gods, worship of idols, and worship of demons and devils. So it's a religious system, right? That's why we call it a woman, because a woman is symbolic of a religious system. But this religious system is worship of demons and devils and idolatry, and less of the flesh, less of the eyes, and the pride of life. But behind all of it, Babylon really represents, it really is a demon. It's a demon force. And all of the 7 kingdoms that represents the beast, it says that a beast rose up out of the water and had 7 heads, and on each of the 7 heads were written the names of blasphemy. Each of those heads are actually represented by a demon, right? So Babylon is a demonic force. It's a demon that's driving it, right? And we're stylizing it as a woman, but it actually is a demon spirit that is behind all of it. And so we know that when we were reading, when Daniel was praying, he was asking the Lord about things that were going to happen to his nation, to his people, and the Lord had sent an angel, dispatched an angel to give him that understanding. There was a demon that was fighting the angel of God, right? And then the angel said, well, I'm going to go back. When I go back, the prince of Greece is going to fight against me when I go back. So, and the Greek Empire was a Greek Empire that was going to come up next after the Medo-Persian Empire. So with every kingdom that has come on the scene, even dating back to Egypt and Assyria, and then Babylon, and then all these other Medo-Persian Empire, then the Greek Empire and the Roman Empire, demons are over all of those kingdoms, and each of those demons bring forth an additional abomination, right, that has not come upon the earth yet, right? But these demons are able to persist. That's why these spiritual kingdoms are still in existence today, because it's a demonic entity that is the root of all of these different kingdoms that bring forth an additional abomination upon the earth till you reach the fullness of the abomination when the final kingdom comes that's ruled by the Antichrist. That's the full abomination of desolation. We've reached the full strength of it. So this is both spiritual. This is more spiritual than it is actually physical. But again, the name refers to Babylon the Great, which is a place. All right. Also, it says it's called the rest of the name here. It says the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. All right. So when you see the word mother, you automatically know this is talking about several things. It means it's the greatest of and the first. It's the greatest of. Like you say, this is the mother of all workouts, right? I don't know what you're talking about. We don't work out, but all right, this is the mother of all workouts, or the mother of all sandwiches, or whatever. The Whopper is the mother of all. It's the biggest. It's the greatest. It's the best. So when we talk about the mother here, we're talking about it's the greatest of. It's the best of. It's the first, right? It's the original. That's what it's talking about here. But in the other sense as well, it also means that in order to be a mother, it means that you have to give birth to as well, right? So if something is a mother, like you can say this is the mother of all burgers, right? The Whopper, that means that once someone saw that burger, every other burger is based off of that first burger, right? The Whopper isn't the mother of all burgers, though. I don't know what is the mother, the first burger, whatever. But what it means that when that burger came, every other burger just wanted to be like that or came forth from that. It was the origin of all other burgers that came forth. When we talk about mother of harlots and abomination of the earth, that means she was the greatest of all the abominations. She was the greatest and the first of. And that's because her origins were the Tower of Babel. That first time where men gathered together to begin to rebel against and try to overthrow God and begin to worship demons and devils and idols made of gold, silver, and all that stuff, right? But as we said, but it also means gives birth to. So she began to give birth to and to nurture and to raise up certain things to come into full stature. And that's what mothers do. Mothers nurture and they nature. They give birth to, they nurture, and they raise up It's something until it reaches its full stature and is able to go out on its own, and then to continue on its own way. And that is what she does. She gives birth to and nurtures harlots and abominations. That's what she's the mother of, and nurtures and raises up and nurtures and gives birth to. Now, a mother, in order to be a mother, you have to have children. You can't be a mother if you don't have children, right? So I'm playing on multiple definitions of the word mother here. So if you're a mother, you have to have children by definition. If you don't have children, you're not a mother. She is the mother of harlots. What she births and nurtures and raises up to full stature is harlots and abominations. Now, the thing about this mother here, she brings forth children, which are harlots and abominations are her children, but her children have no father, right? By the nature of what harlots are, and she's called a great whore. When a great whore produces children, their children have no father. They actually called bastards. They're bastards. They have no father at all. So Babylon the Great, Mystery Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth, produces children or has children, but they have no father at all. So she only and constantly produces harlots and abominations. She's just constantly producing harlots. Babylon, this woman here, all she does is just constantly just producing harlots, and abominations of the earth. More and more abominations. That's all she does. That is her spiritual purpose against God, against Christ and the church. So that is this whole title here is the title that describes her spiritual purpose against God, against Christ and the church, is that she is to continue to expand throughout the whole earth, producing harlots, seducing others to participate in it, and all forms of idolatry, spiritual fornication, spiritual idolatry, to fight against God, against Christ and the church. That's why she goes and sits upon the scarlet-colored beast, because she engages in battle against the church, empowered, transported by Satan. All right, let's look a little further about this word mother here. Now, we see that there is a mother, that is speaking of Babylon, and she is a mother of harlots and abomination. But there is also another mother that Paul speaks about. So, and that mother is the mother of the believers, right? Galatians chapter 4, verse 22, verse 26 through 27 talks about another mother city that is of the saints, right? That the saints have their origins from. Galatians chapter 4 says, "For it is written that Abraham had two sons, one by a bondwoman and the other by a free woman. But Jerusalem, which is above, is free, which is the mother of us all. For it is written, Rejoice, thou barren that bearest not, break forth and cry, thou that travaileth not, for the desolate hath many more children than she that hath an husband." When you read that, you're like, what in the world is he talking about? It's so complicated. It sounds like a mystery, right? But what he's talking about here is that just like there is Babylon, a city, and she produces harlots and abominations, that's her children, there is another mother, which is called Jerusalem, but it's the Jerusalem that is from above. She is the mother that produces, out from her comes those that are of God, that are of Christ, that are the saints, right? So there are two mother cities. There are two mother cities. One is Babylon of earthly, right? That leads people to bondage, that leads people into idolatry and fornication. Then there is another mother, a mother city, which is from above, which is Jerusalem, right? And that is the location of God's people. Whereas Babylon the Great, the mother of abominations and harlots, she is a city, and she has people that's located in her, and they are Babylonians. They are idolaters and, evil and wicked. Hebrews chapter 12, Paul goes on to describe this a little more in more detail. Hebrews chapter 12, verse 22 through 24. He speaks of this mother city, Jerusalem, as the location of God's people, in contrast to Babylon, which is Satan's people, the Babylonian people who hate God and worship idols and serve Satan. He says in Hebrews chapter 12, verse 22, "But ye are come unto Mount Zion, and unto the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem, to an innumerable company of angels, to the general assembly and church of the firstborn, which are written in heaven, and to God, the judge of all, and to the spirits of just men made perfect, right? And to Jesus, the mediator of the new covenant, and to the blood of sprinkling that speaketh better things than that of Abel. Basically, that can sound really complex or complicated. What he's saying is that there is a spiritual city, right, that is above. It's Mount Zion. It's a holy hill, right? It's the place where God, it's the place where Christ reigns, right? Where his throne, not his throne, but his place of habitation. It's a city, a place of habitation where he reigns from. It's like the example of David. David, he reigned from Mount Zion, right? And that's an example where Christ reigns from. It's a place, it's a city, right? City of the living God, right? And it's a heavenly place, and it's the general assembly and church of the firstborn. So when it says general assembly and church of the firstborn, that firstborn he's talking about is Christ is that firstborn. And so Zion is the place of the city of living God where Christ was established as the firstborn, and from him came forth through the covenant as the mediator, right? Through his blood, he was then able to bring about the city of the living God, where we dwell at, where we are made perfect, right? Whereas Babylon, its purpose is to have them drink of the cup of filthiness and fornication and allow themselves to become defiled. Well, here, our birthplace is a birthplace out of the blood of Christ, out of the fellowship of a testimony of a covenant between God and Christ, right? To bring forth a people, to have a place where those that believe in God, worship God, love Christ, right? Have a place for us to dwell at where we are not defiled by the things and the inhabitants of this earth and by the Babylonian city here, both spiritual and natural, that we have a place, right? That's our mother. That's our birthplace. That's our place of habitation. And that's what he's talking about here. It may sound a little confusing. I'm rushing through it, so I'm not really fully breaking it down in its entirety. But there are two cities that are in contrast here that we're talking about here. All right. Another thing here says, and upon her forehead was a name written, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abomination of the earth. So when we look at this phrase, the mother of harlots, and when we think about harlots, that she's the mother of harlots, one, we said that's all she does is she produces harlots. She gives birth to, she produces them, and she raises them up. So her thing is that she's always trying to find many ways to, the thing about a harlot is a harlot tries to capture you through seduction. She has many ways of doing it. When you read the book of Proverbs, it talks about, she adorns herself, puts the lipstick on, she puts perfume on, she puts rose petals on her bed and even sprays her bed with perfume and stuff like that. She whistles and winks the eye or whatever to draw her lovers and stuff like that. Right, so a harlot has many ways to draw, and she's called the mother of harlots. So she's producing harlots to create as many ways as possible to draw and seduce people into Babylon, to get them to drink of that cup of filthiness and fornication and abomination, to ultimately to lead them to worship into idolatry, but then also lead them to ultimately to the worship of Satan and fighting against God, against Christ, and against the church. So that's all she does. She's found every day, every year, every month, she's spawning more harlots to try to draw people in. And so she uses the appeal of gold, pearls, riches, the spirituality of hidden truths through, certain like Eastern mysticism or all kind of, like yoga and all of the kinds of different truths where they're like, chase after this, you'll find hidden wisdom and knowledge of how to live longer, be healthier, stuff like that, all these different things, whatever. The mother of harlots, she's also producing false Christian churches, all these weird denominations, that are occults, but they seem to have some, fake, untrue association with Christ, right? But it's a way of drawing, seducing people into false idolatry, into false worship, into not worshiping God or worshiping the true and living God, not worshiping the true Christ that was given to us in the Old Testament and revealed to us in the flesh in the New Testament. You know, they're presenting all these different types of Christian, quote unquote, religions, right? That's harlots. That was produced by the mother of harlots, right? Science, that's also another harlot produced by this woman. She's just producing science, where they believe in science, whether it be Darwinism, evolution, creation of our world, you know, all this stuff, aliens, and, you know, all these kind of science stuff, whatever, belief in science, right? That is one of the harlots of this woman. She's just constantly birthing harlots that seduce people and draw people away from worshiping God, serving God, and draw them into serving and worshiping something else, or denying God, denying Christ, right? Education, one of the most common ways that people say, I'm educated. I don't believe in God. I don't believe in Jesus. I don't believe in that religious stuff. I believe in my PhD, right? I believe in that. Politics, political movements, things like that. These are harlots that are spawned every single day. There are new political movements and ideology that come forth that draw people into that, believing that that's their way of hope. That's their way of salvation. That's what's going to make things better. If everybody can just go green, that'll save the earth. When what's destroying the earth is sin, is what's destroying the earth, right? Diets and pleasures, all different types of pleasures and entertainment and technology. All these things are different types of harlots that are produced that draw and seduce people away from worshiping God, serving God. And the origin is this woman, this mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abomination. But again, it's a mystery. People don't know that this is what it is. When they say, "Oh, it's Black Lives Matter," or some go green, stuff like that, they don't know that there's something spiritual behind that, you know, until they get deeper into it. And they're like, "Oh my goodness, this is some occult stuff," you know, or, you know, the deeper you get into it, then you realize, oh man, look what's going on here. You know, we talk about political organizations, and whether it be democracies, fascism, Nazism, socialism, communism, all of these things, right, are harlots that have been produced by this mother, right? Just producing these things that draw people to have belief in them, and they end up telling you can't serve God, you can't worship God, you can't read the Bible, and all these kind of things. You know, the Bible is hate speech and stuff like that. All right, so she's the mother of harlots. She is without righteousness and judgment. She is destroyers and murderers, and she's corrupt. That's what, when the Bible speaks of what a harlot is, it talks about a woman, spiritually speaking, that is without righteousness, without judgment. She's a destroyer, she's a murderer, and she's corrupt. And I'm saying that because when you look at Isaiah chapter 1, verse 21, it talks about one of many examples about what a harlot is in the spiritual sense. It says, "How is the faithful city become an harlot? It was full of judgment. Righteousness lodged in it, but now murderers." So a harlot is something that does not have judgment in it. It does not have righteousness in it, and it is full of murderers. And that's what these things are. A harlot is someone that is used to pull you down, destroy you, pervert you, make you unclean, and cause you to be a destroyer of others. She is a destroyer of others. That's what harlots are. They destroy you. They pull you down, defile you, pervert you, make you unclean. That's what the purpose of harlots are. You may not know it from the beginning. You're like, "Oh, this looks good." People go to harlot, they're not thinking all that. It's like, "Oh, she looks good. She looks enticing. She looks lovely." And then you get pulled in, you get trapped, and then you're destroyed. All right, so she is a murderer. All right, the other thing here it talks about is she is the mother of abominations. So it uses the word mother of harlots and abominations. I've taken them out and said she's the mother of harlots and mother of abominations of the earth, because that's what she is. She is the mother of those two things. So when we talk about the mother of abominations, when you look at this word abomination, or abominations, it means something that is morally detestable and hated acts against human nature and God. So that's what an abomination is. That it is things that are done that are against your human nature and that are directly against God. And so in the sense that when you look up examples of abominations in the Bible, it gives things that are typically associated with the result of worshiping and serving gods and idols. So when persons that start to do morally detestable, and hated acts against human nature, if you look closely, you're going to see that it's associated with a result of them worshiping and serving false gods, serving demons and devils, or idolatry. That's always going to be present. That is the result of when you get yourself involved into idolatry or harlotry. It's going to result in you doing detestable acts. So for example, right, or another type of abomination associated with abominations is honoring everything above God or instead of God. That's one of the things that Paul speaks of in Romans. He says, when you won't honor God, right, or worship him, and you worship everything instead of God, it leads to detestable acts. And one of the examples he said was lesbianism and homosexuality. That is a result, a judgment that comes upon you when you won't worship God as the creator, right? You honor, Bible says you honor, you worship the creation over the creator. And as a result, detestable things and acts begin to happen that are against God and against human nature, right? That is what an abomination is. So worshiping idols, worshiping demons and devils, that's an abomination. That is against God. That's against your human nature for what you're created for. So an example of another abomination would be passing the children through the fire. That's what the Israelites did when they started worshiping Moloch and stuff like that. They would pass their children through the fire and allow them to be sacrificed and burned up. Some would do human sacrifices where they would cut their hearts out and stuff like that, right? Or throw their children into volcanoes or things like that. Or other forms of abominations are piercings and tattoos and all those other kind of things. Those are abominations, and those abominations are a result of participation in idolatry. Idolatry and worshiping demons and devils cause you to do those things, those acts against human nature, acts against God, and now they call those abominations. So things that you do as a result of worshiping demons and devils and idolatry, those things are called abominations. And typically we think of things like homosexuality, human sacrifices, all forms of piercings, and all this kind of crazy stuff. But it also, Paul says, it includes all sins. All sins are abominations. You were not created for that purpose, right? It's an act against your human nature, and it's an act against God. I'll give you an example. In Colossians chapter 3, verse 5, Paul says, mortify therefore your members which are upon the earth, fornication, uncleanliness, inordinate affection, evil concupiscence, and covetousness, which is idolatry, right? So all of these things that we're talking about here, when we get spiritual revelation through Christ, it lets us know that covetousness, which is greediness, that's idolatry, right? Idolatry, and idolatry causes abominations. Or these abominations are a result of idolatry. Is what he's saying here. So in Jeremiah chapter 44, verse 22, I'm gonna read this here because my time is up here. Jeremiah 44, verse 22, showing us that abominations also end up causing desolations. It says, so the Lord could no longer bear because the evil of your doings, because of the abominations which you have committed, therefore is your land a desolation, an astonishment, and a curse. So what the mother of harlots and abomination of the earth is trying to do, she's trying to move humanity to a place where God, and get them involved in all kinds of evilness and evil doings, and get them into a place of abominations, actions that are against God and against human nature as a result of idolatry, get them to a place where God says, where their land is turned into a desolation, and God says, you know what? I'm going to curse you. I'm going to have to destroy you because the land is turned into a place of desolation. So abominations would turn the land into a desolation. Lands that are filled, that engage in idolatry, whether it be America, whether it be India, China, Latin America, Africa, whatever, those lands become desolations and an astonishment. I mean, you look at it and you're like, why are these countries in such disarray and destruction and like that? It's because of idolatry, which have led to acts against human nature called abominations or sins, which then leads the land to a desolation. And now you've got America just in chaos, headed for destruction. You've got all these other nations that are in poverty and in chaos and in murder and death, all because there's idolatry going on. All right, my time has expired. I will pause right there. Any comments or questions?